Hello and welcome to the Big League Show. As always, I'm Connor Somerville, joined by Aiden Silliphant. And today, we are not live on Spirit Live due to some technical issues on Spirit Live's front, but instead, you're getting the recorded Zoom calls that are broken up by 40 minutes every time, the ideal episodes. But what that means is, well, we were going to have them on either way. But what that means is we get to go potentially a little bit more in depth and go for a bit longer with our guest today, Mr. Luke Burrows. Luke, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you for
No
coming. We're
problem.
excited to talk to you, and you've done some interesting things that are a little different than some of the other people in our program who we've had on. So I'm excited to sort of get into that. But Aiden, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's been a pretty stressful couple of weeks, midterms. Connor and I had our production yesterday, went well. But yeah, it's a weird time now because really the only sport going on is NFL. MLB just finished last night.
I'm insulted.
Big four sport going on. Big four sport going on. So it's a little bit of the off season now for sports, but yeah, I'm doing good. Connor. Can't complain.
Yeah, well, I'm not doing so good after that comment, mister.
Okay.
But I guess we should sort of dive just straight into Luke and everything about you. And I think we'll start with a question that we start asking every one of our guests when we have them on. And that is, what is your first memory of sports? And what is your first memory of sport media?
Wow. That's a really good question. First memory of sports. I think I'd have to say, though I'm not the biggest basketball fan. I was maybe 4 or 5, and I'm not from Toronto. I'm from about 3 hours north of Toronto, so coming to Toronto was a big deal. And we went to a Raptors game, and I was very, very young, but I think it might have been like the first time I was ever in a setting like that, and I just remember how exciting it was. I couldn't tell you the year, I couldn't tell you the season, I couldn't tell you who was on the team. I remember I got a little purple dinosaur plushie, but I think that'd have to be it. That was maybe 2003-ish. My first memory of sport media, I think, would have to be maybe in high school. I mean, if you're asking like the first kind of taste I had of it, probably high school, grade 9 or 10, I would have been writing for both my school paper and another school nearby, and just nothing special, just game reports of, I think, soccer and basketball games. That's probably the first time I ever really kind of touched it at all. And even at that point, I never would have kind of guessed that I'd be actually in the sport media industry, post-secondary. But yeah, probably grade 9 or 10 for that, I think.
What do you think got you in, or Connor, you have a follow-up? You can go. I have a different question.
I was going to ask him, what is his first memory of consuming sport media, not necessarily being in the industry?
I think I would say my first memory of just, taking in any kind of sport media would have been around the same time of whenever that Raptors game was. Again, really little, just sitting in my living room with my brother and my dad, and before either my brother and I got into the NHL, and watching Boston Bruins games, because that's the team my dad would put on. And he's not huge on hockey. I think he's a Bobby Orr fan more than anything, but I just know if we were watching a Boston Bruins game, it would have been a long time ago, and I couldn't name a player that was on the ice, but I just remember it was more of a like an experience thing, just hanging out with my brother and my dad watching hockey in our living room. So I think that's probably the first time that I ever kind of consciously took in a sporting event.
So you watched a lot of Bruins growing up, it sounds like, and that's and you turned into a Canucks fan.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's kind of funny because neither of my parents are like religious sports fans, right? Like that have a team and like they live or die by. My mom is a Leafs fan. She grew up near Toronto, and it just kind of happened that way. Dad's a Bruins fan. And my brother, who's a few years older than me, he grew up a Senators fan. And me being younger than him, I just, when I was that age, I just, I didn't want to cheer for the same team my parents were cheering for, because I just didn't like that. So I chose the Senators with my brother. I was maybe 5 or 6, and then I think it was free agency 2008. I could be wrong, but Wade Redden, who was my favorite Senator, I don't know why Wade Redden left the team, and I was so upset. However old I was, like 8 years old or whatever, I was so upset that I said I wasn't a Senators fan anymore, and I became a Canucks fan only because of Alex Burrows, who I thought it was pretty cool. He had the same last name
I
as me.
just pulled up his hockey DP page to see when he joined the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah,
because I knew this was related.
yeah.
So that would have been 05-06 was his first year with the Canucks. That's hilarious.
And that's funny how Burrows later in his career went back to the Senators.
Went to Ottawa, yeah. I like when that happened, I was kind of, it's kind of ironic. I like to see that though, because I always have been. I've stayed a Senators fan, sort of secretly all these years, and the Senators, they're just a very nostalgic team for me. Their old jerseys, which they brought back, I love those jerseys. Just Daniel Alfredsson is still one of my favorite players probably ever. I remember their run in 2006-07 or whatever against Anaheim. I remember listening to that on the radio when we were up at the cottage. I remember, I think game 3 or game 5, Alfredsson kicked in a goal, or there's some controversy about Alfredsson kicking in a goal, and I just remember that so vividly. So as a Canucks fan, I do have probably an unusual amount of Senators memories stored away somewhere.
That's
interesting.
I can't get over the fact that you're a Canucks fan when your dad's a Bruins fan. Like, how do you not have fist fights?
That 2011 series must have been interesting.
Yeah, like the thing with my dad, I don't know why he's a Bruins fan. That's just kind of what I grew up knowing. He likes the Bruins. Again, I guess he grew up watching Bobby Orr. I don't know. Right now, if I, in 2020, if I asked him name some of the Bruins players, I think he'd know Chara. That's probably it.
And he's not even
a Bruins player anymore.
So, well, yeah. So same thing with my mom. Like, she says she's a Leafs fan, and when the Leafs are out of the playoffs, she's upset. But no, like, she'd probably know better. She could name a few other big guys. But other than that, like, I think for a lot of people, it's your parents that you receive, whatever fandom they're into. But I think for me, a lot of it was my brother, and his Senators thing. So up until they traded my favorite player, Wade Redden, I was right there with them. And then I decided to go my own way. Why
didn't you follow Wade Redden?
Well, here's the thing. Like, I don't know, but I also don't know why I liked him. I grew up playing a lot of NHL, like EA NHL, on our big clunky PC we had. I think the first game I was born in 99, so obviously I didn't play NHL 99 when it came out, but I remember playing NHL 99, NHL 2000, 2004, 2007, and I think I didn't know really what I was playing. I didn't know that like all these people were real, but I grew attached to, Wade Redden in NHL 2004 when I was 4 or 5 years old. I just thought it was so cool. Maybe he played a good season for me, and it just went from there. So growing up, when I didn't really understand, what actually the NHL was, playing video games and stuff kind of filled in that hole. And then when I turned an age that I actually realized what was going on, I think that's when I kind of made the decision, Vancouver. It's actually funny, on free agency day, 2008, I think, again, 2008, when Redden left, we were in Ottawa for Canada Day. And the way I found out was we were walking down the street, I don't know if the 1st or 2nd of July, and I saw a newspaper that on the front page, it sounds like a story, but on the front page, Wade Redden leaves the Senators, and I was just so distraught, and I probably spent 60 seconds deciding, like, you know what, not a Sens fan, I'm picking a new team, and it, I don't know, just went from there. I don't know why I didn't want to follow him.
That was on July 1st. You saw that newspaper on July 1st.
Something like that. It was that Ottawa trip for us,
Wow.
which was right.
They got that paper
then.
out fast then.
Yeah, I don't know, first or second, something like that. But I think another part of it was I wanted to cheer for a Canadian team. I'd never want to cheer for an American team. I don't know why I kind of thought that growing up, but I did. So it went from there.
Aiden, did you ever have any sort of similar situations where you questioned your allegiance?
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, no, I you know me. I wasn't a Leafs fan really up until I would say probably the year they got Babcock. Then I became a really big Leafs fan. Like, I was always a Leafs fan, but they weren't my number one team. I was a Penguins fan growing up. 2008, I started liking the Penguins. So you can say I'm a bandwagon fan, but technically they hadn't won a cup at that point. They lost to the Red Wings in the final. And then I think, yeah, you're right. It was the trade deadline. I don't know what year it was, but Rick Nash's name was being thrown around, and he spent his whole career on Columbus. And there was rumors about him getting traded to the Rangers. And I was just like, oh no, the Penguins are in trouble. If Nash goes to the Rangers, I'm probably going to cheer for the Rangers now. But they didn't get Nash at that trade deadline. They got him like the following offseason. But I decided to stay with the Penguins, and they went on to win back-to-back cups. But I mean, Leafs are always number one. Like, if the Penguins and Leafs were to play in the playoffs, like, Leafs come over the Penguins. Yeah. What about you, Connor? Did you question your allegiance with the Leafs?
Definitely not with the Leafs. I've been a Leafs fan since day one. I can physically remember watching that shootout between the Devils Islanders. I think it was Devils Islanders in like 2009 at my aunt's house. I was like the only one watching, and it was the shootout that decided whether or not the Leafs would make the playoffs, and physically crying after that because I was so upset. But the one time I was just unbelievably angry that one of my teams got rid of a player was TFC. When they got rid of Dwayne DeRosario, I was unbelievably mad. And neither of you know who that is, which
I know who that is.
Justified. But yeah, I was a mad human being that night. But I've been pretty loyal, I think, so far. And I think we should sort of touch a bit more on Luke and in terms of his, I guess, upbringing in a way, because one of the big sort of, I guess, jobs, I don't know if it was a job or more volunteering, but you were a student trustee for your school district.
Oh, yeah.
So what was that about, and what did that sort of entail?
So what that is, so did you guys both went to high school in Ontario?
Yes.
I assume.
Yeah.
So each school board in Ontario, both Catholic and public, has a number of student trustees. So I was in Blue Water District School Board up sort of on the Bruce Peninsula around Owen Sound. And the student trustee system, essentially, it's 1 to 2 trustees from each board, and they get elected from what's called the Student Senate. So each school, at least in my school board, how it worked is each school had a student senator that was elected from within their school to serve on the student senate, which was sort of the direct connection to the actual official school board. And then from that student senate, again, 1 to 2, I think sometimes some boards had 3, but mostly 1 to 2 senators were elected from within the Senate to become student trustees. And those student trustees actually sat at the board table, didn't have a vote in anything. They'd go to conferences throughout the year with the Ontario Student Trustees Association, which obviously is all the student trustees built up together throughout the province. But it was a really interesting experience. I've never really been one for politics in any shape or form. I'd say I more so am now, and maybe I kind of owe it to that. But essentially, what it was is you're 2 parts. You're sort of the liaison between your school and the student senate. So that's where you make that connection and, you know, voice any issues that your own school has, your students in your school. And then from the student senate, the 1 or 2 student trustees is the voice on the school board, where you attend the board meetings and you're directly involved with what goes on there. So yeah, I don't really know how I got into that. I think I just saw the opportunity in grade 11. It would have been the end of grade 11. You know, like our school needs a student senator. You can run for it here, and I just it kind of went from there. It, sort of unexpected, I guess. I never would have saw myself jump into a position like that, but I'm pretty glad I did. So
You get volunteer hours for that?
you get paid, actually.
Oh, you get paid.
Yeah.
A little bit better than volunteer hours, just a little bit. Wow, that's pretty nice. I can't believe this school's paid you to do that. That's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a bit surprising. So, like, can I ask which school boards were you guys a part of?
For elementary school, I was a part of TDSB, but I went to a private school for middle and high school.
Okay.
I was at Halton District School Board.
Okay. So I'll ask you guys later, because I probably have a connection to the student trustees in your school. I think TDSB, there's a chance. And I'm not sure if it was Halton or Halton Catholic, but yeah, it was really cool, because where I was from, I like a very rural area, and I didn't really get to meet a lot of other students from all over the province. And I guess a lot of people maybe don't get that experience, but that kind of gave me that opportunity. And I still have people I met and friends that I met during that time, and I still talk to them today. So it was really cool.
Nice.
Sounds like a really interesting experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're the only one I've known that has done that too. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't, and I hadn't either before I did it.
Right.
And that was kind of a big issue that we would talk about at conferences, is no one really knows that this exists.
Right.
And I don't know, after I left, after my grade 12 year, I can't say I really stayed involved. So I don't know if I went back to my high school now and asked, like, do you guys know that you have a student senator? I'd hope they would, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they didn't. So
yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing. I'm going to assume this wasn't a thing in elementary school, because I don't think you want
so.
12-year-olds making those sort of decisions.
Getting paid.
Getting paid too. But yeah, it's a really interesting, I guess, sort of, I guess you could call it a phase in your life, sort of something that you had never done before.
Yeah,
How do you think,
for sure.
How do you think that sort of helped you in pursuing sport media and deciding on sport media, because you had a bit of a stopgap between Ryerson and graduating?
So that's a really good point, and my answer is kind of not really maybe what you'd expect. So with that position, we'd go to a lot of conferences, and I spent a few weekends in my grade 12 year right downtown Toronto. And it's not like I'd never been to Toronto before. I did a lot of traveling growing up, but actually living in a city, by myself too, I never really did. So it was only a few weekends, but from where I'm from, like, I grew up in a town of 500. My graduating class in grade 12 was only 16 people. So
Wow.
I didn't really have any big city experiences. The closest city to me was Owen Sound, and even that isn't very big. So thinking about where I wanted to go to university, by grade 11, 10, 11, 12, I knew sport media existed, the program here, and I knew I was interested. But like, if I'm being honest, living in downtown Toronto was intimidating to me. So I think, and aside from, maybe like the business aspect and, the student trustee program, it definitely gave me some experiences in maturity and stuff. But a big part of it was just spending time by myself in downtown Toronto. So after high school, I went to Laurier for a year, and that was even better, because before coming to Ryerson, I kind of had that buffer point in Waterloo, definitely a bigger city than where I grew up, but not like Toronto. So that was definitely good as well. But Now that you mentioned that, like, how did that affect your route to sport media? Probably more than I would have considered before. I never really thought about that, but I think getting that exposure to all these different experiences and all these different people, like a lot of people, it was very politics heavy. So a lot of people were interested in politics and business, but a lot of very interesting people were a part of the Ontario Student Trustees Association. So it kind of expanded from my very small town perspective to, eventually getting me to Toronto.
Yeah, and I guess you did put it really well. And Laurier was a bit of a stopgap for you. It was a bit of
in the middle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like a good introduction to how living in a sizable city
Yeah.
is to transition to Toronto, which I've lived here for my entire life, and I'm still intimidated by downtown. So I don't think that's necessarily uncommon for people like
Yeah.
looking at sport media and looking at Ryerson thinking, I don't know if I want to live in downtown.
Yeah, it's definitely like a very different university experience. Like, after going to Laurier for a year, and then like that is such a typical university campus. It's just, it is as a default in a good way, but as default as you can really get when it comes to university in Ontario. And that was nice to have. And, having that experience and then making the decision was to come to a very unusual, commuter school right downtown Toronto, that kind of thing. There were some not necessarily tough decisions to make, but definitely ones that, you kind of consider what kind of university experience are you going to have from this.
Yeah, it is definitely unique going to Ryerson at Yonge and Dundas, being legitimately probably the heart of the city.
Yeah.
I don't know if there'd be another spot in the city that you could call the heart of it. But yeah, let's sort of talk about your Laurier experience a little bit more, because I'm interested about your writing with the Cord. I'm not sure if that was student affiliated, or school affiliated, but what was that sort of like, and how did that sort of push you to potentially consider swapping from Laurier to Toronto?
Yeah, so that was a really cool experience, and it was very different, and you guys would know it's very different. Like the writing for the eye opener, and that would be the equivalent. The Cord would be equal to the eye opener here at Ryerson. Writing for the eye opener, it's a very popular thing to do, and you don't always get stories, and there's a lot of demand for writers. But when I was at Laurier, and I think I started wanting to write November, December that year. I didn't write my first article. Actually, I have it right here. Until January 10th of that year. And it was actually a men's hockey game against Ryerson. I didn't write my first article until January, but it was, the thing is they didn't have anyone to write for them. Their newspaper, it's a great newspaper, and their other sections, like their news and arts and life stuff, super popular, and really, really healthy writing base. But sports, a lot of games just went uncovered. No one really wrote about things. I think their basketball program was probably the most popular, so they got quite a bit of coverage. But I was maybe one of two, I think, people that was writing for their men's hockey team. So it was a really cool experience, because all they really do is they say, here's your media pass. They give you the address to the rink. And I did all my writing in the winter. And I just remember walking across Waterloo Park late at night, just on my way back from a game, thinking about how am I going to write this? Because I wasn't in any classes about sport media or journalism. I didn't have any. I wrote for my high school newspaper, but that was, nothing special by that point. So it was a very, again, intimidating experience, because you'd sit and watch the game, and then you'd go down, and I'd literally go to the dressing room door and just kind of wait awkwardly outside until someone walked by and I asked for the coach, or the coach came out or something. And I did an interview there without having any experience on how to do interviews. I had one guy that kind of taught me some basic tips, but it was a lot of it was just kind of figuring out by myself. And by the end of it, I didn't do that many games. I think I maybe 6-ish, because obviously I was only writing for one semester. But by the end of it, I kind of felt like I had a grasp. And by that point, I also knew I was coming to Ryerson for the next year. And that's, I think, the biggest reason why I, like, right when I got to Ryerson, I kind of got myself into the eye opener. And that's been a really cool experience to have. And I think I definitely wouldn't have done that without even that, that half semester at Laurier.
So what have you done specifically for the eye opener? I saw some articles on there from you, but also in your Twitter bio, you have graphic designer. So
Yeah.
can you maybe dive into that a little bit?
So I haven't written for the eye opener since first year. I don't know how many games I did. I did a few men's and women's hockey games, but so I did that in first year. And then this year, just recently, since the beginning of the year, I guess, I've been doing graphics with a few other people actually in our year, but I've been doing graphics for the Eye Openers Twitter page. Eye Opener Sports Twitter page, which I believe is new this year, created by the new sports editor. So that's been pretty cool. I've kind of last year I took a sport graphics class, and I always knew I liked graphics, but I never knew I liked it enough to buy Photoshop or anything. But, I finally made the decision. I've been kind of doing stuff like that ever since. And yeah, the doing it for the eye opener is just sort of another step there. And it's been a lot of fun. I like, it's nice doing it, for a purpose with the school. It's been a cool experience.
What do you think you like better now, writing or doing the graphics?
That's a good question. I think graphics are more, and for lack of a better word, they're more fun.
Yeah, enjoyable.
But
yeah.
Writing, it's almost more rewarding, I find, writing. And I've always been writing, through high school, and my early years of university has always been kind of my go-to when people ask, what aspect of the industry do you like? And that's definitely expanded now, but I've always liked to write. Lately, well, I guess not lately, because I've kind of stopped writing altogether for a while, but lately I was doing more long feature writing, and I really like that, because that's, it's a lot on your own accord, and you're doing a lot of the research, and it's just totally up to you what gets produced. So I don't know which I'd like better. Both definitely have positive aspects to them.
And quickly, before we take a quick break, let's jump back to that decision to move from Laurier to Ryerson. What was that entire process like for you? Was it difficult? Just maybe give us an idea of how that entire process sort of figured itself out.
Yeah, it was really hard. I went to Laurier, and I loved it. I had a great group of friends. My residence experience was awesome. And by about November-ish, I kind of thought the program isn't really what I want. The university experience was great. Laurier is an awesome university. But I kind of had to make a decision, for the better of my education and kind of what I'm actually here to do. I'm not sure if communication study at Laurier is the way to go. So I think it was late November, I committed, and I applied to Ryerson, and I'm kind of figured, like, yeah, if I get in, I'm going to go. So it was super tough. Even like day-to-day things, because that was right around the time, because in a city like that, you have to find the following year's accommodations like 10 months in advance, just because it's a student town. So all my friends were finding places to live, and I just had to say, like, I can't, because I might not get into Ryerson, but I can't. I just have to wait and see. So thank goodness I did. I don't know what I would have done if I was there for another year, but it was really tough, because I loved it there, and I knew I would have had an awesome 4 years, but I just kind of figured, like, I should do this. And right out of high school, like I applied to Ryerson Sport Media and I didn't get in. I think I kind of underestimated how difficult of a program it was to get into. So I went to Laurier, and making that decision was a tough one. But come March, when you get the email that you have an interview, and then you get the email that you got in, it was definitely worth it. And making the actual choice, like, okay, I'm in, do I go? It was a no-brainer because, like I said, it's just I knew I had to do that. But leaving behind even what I'd done in the year at Laurier, it was tough, but definitely worth it.
That's really good. You no. Oh, can I keep going?
Go ahead, sure.
I thought you were gonna take a quick break. I was gonna ask. Well, I was gonna say, first of all, you're like really determined to get into the program. Getting rejected the first time around and then coming back. I think you're the first person who we've talked to that didn't get in the first time and then applied again. So that's really, really cool. Did you get an interview the first time around?
No, I didn't even know there was an interview process. I remember, and looking back on it, it was kind of stupid of me, but I just remember doing all the application processes, and I just didn't take it seriously because, at that point I'd applied to a whole bunch of schools, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. So it's not like I pushed on Ryerson Sport Media. I just kind of paid everything the same amount of attention. Not to say I just blew off the application process, but I did not understand how difficult of a program it is to get into, and for good reason. Like I'm glad. I wouldn't say I'm glad, but it's almost a good thing I didn't get in the first time, because it kind of makes you realize, like, okay, like if you want to get into this program, that's a really, really good program, you are going to actually have to, work for it. So.
Yeah, you're the prime example of that, working hard to get into a program, like going to another school and then being like, okay, you know what, I might go back to Ryerson now. Like that's really good. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and we're going to dive into all of the other aspects of Ryerson, and including the application process and filling all the applications out and then doing the interviews in a second, because we'd love to hear who interviewed you. But we will be back in 1 second. All right, and we're back to talk everything, I guess, Ryerson, because we sort of hit on everything else. And I think we should start at the very beginning for you and the application process. You mentioned you did this twice. First time not successful, the second time very. So what was the application process like, varied over the 2 years that you applied?
Similar, and I think it might have been the same. Definitely the same requirements. I don't know how specific, in terms of the essay questions and stuff, but I remember it being very similar. I think there was a difference maybe when it came to, I don't know if it was the resume exactly, but something about your extracurricular experience. I think there was a difference there from first to second year, but overall very similar. When it came to the interview process, obviously I only had it the second year. So, in general, I would say pretty close.
And who did your interview, and do you remember what day it was?
It was March 14th.
Oh my God. I'm so blown away. How many people remember the exact date?
Because
March 14th, it was March 14th.
Because I had to, because I was at Laurier and I had to get to Toronto. It was this whole thing, because I had to go to my grandparents in Mississauga the night before and then train in on the 14th. And then I had to get back to Waterloo for a class on the night of the 14th. It was a big thing, but Laurel Walzak did my interview. And I remember it very well. And I knew at the time that it had gone really well. And I basically knew, she'd said some things, and I basically knew I was probably going to get in. So I was pretty psyched, especially after, the first year not getting in at all. But that might be the first time, like I remember I took the GO train in from Mississauga, and then I walked up Yonge, from Union because I didn't know how to take the subway. I walked up young, and then it took me a while. I got to the RCC extremely early, like 2 hours early, and I think I sat in Kerr Hall for like an hour just waiting. I remember that day. Now that I think about it, I remember that day really well. But it was a whirlwind, but it was pretty fun, that whole experience.
What was going through your mind when you were sitting at Kerr Hall for like 2 hours?
Well, it was tough because I almost think, because like I said, I didn't have it the year before, so I had no idea what to expect. I walked by where they were happening and tons of people just waiting around. But I knew like if I waited with them, I just would have freaked myself out. So I don't even know if I could find the place in Kerr Hall anymore, but I just went and sat in Kerr Hall, and I think I just listened to music and tried not to think too much about it. I've never been one to get super worked up over an interview where we had the essay portion as well. But I remember that day I was just because I was just super anxious. Like, what if I don't get in again? Like, do I come back and try a third time? Or so I don't know. But again, like the whole experience of that day was awesome.
I also just realized, nice headphones.
Thank you.
We all have the same headphones.
Yeah, we all have the same headphones, don't we? Well then, thank you, Ryerson, because I believe these were the suggested headphones first. So do you remember like what you talked about with Laurel?
A big part of it was my year at Laurier, and like why I was there and why I was applying again. But other than that, I don't know. I remember it was a lot shorter than I thought it was going to be. A few like 2 or 3 very basic questions, and then like a personal one, and asking like why did you go to Laurier for a year and why are you coming here now? So that's where I just kind of got real with her and just like explained I didn't get in the first time. And I didn't even get an interview, and now I'm coming back and trying again. And thinking back on it, I think because I was hesitant to say that at first, that I didn't get in the first time, but thinking back on it, I think that was a good thing to tell her about, because I don't know if that was explicit on the resume or whatever. But I remember it was a lot shorter than I thought and a lot more casual than I thought. She was just kind of, a conversation. And I don't know if everyone can say the same. I don't know if you guys can say the same. I'm not sure who interviewed you, but it was a really casual experience. And I think that was nice to see, because they were more seeing what kind of person you were rather than asking all these things that you've done. So that was good to see. And that's a big part of why it's tough to see the application process be changed now.
Yeah, switching the focus to marks, I think, is tough, especially for a program like this, and how it really does take a specific, well, not necessarily a specific person, but someone who actually wants to be in sport media and will have the work ethic to do the work. And I think that the interview process definitely helped with that. I don't know if you applied to any other Ryerson programs, whether it be media production or.
The second time around I did. The first time around I didn't, but the second time, because when you apply on the program, whatever, you have 3 applications for the same price. So I just did anyways. I forget what I did. I think I did journalism and probably media production, or maybe creative industries. I'm not sure, but I think one of the applications I dropped halfway through. Even if I got in, I figured I don't want to do it. And I think I did get into journalism, thinking back on it. Different application process, but again, journalism, I wasn't really sure. Again, like if I did get in, do I really want to do this? So those were just kind of on the back burner for me.
So how many, I always love asking people this because I apply to way too many programs, but how many programs do you think you applied to over the 2 years that you were applying?
In the first year, I applied to Ryerson Sport Media. I think I might have only done 3. No, I did 4. Ryerson Sport Media, Laurier, Carleton, and Queens. And it was really tough because the Ryerson was the only one I didn't get into. And then the second time around, just the 3 Ryerson programs.
So what did you apply to at Carleton?
Journalism.
Oh, okay. I did too.
Yeah.
When did you get in?
Carleton, I think might have been, no, Laurier was the first one I got into. Carleton, I think, was second, which would have been, I think those 2 were in like February, and then Queens in March, and then never heard from Ryerson. So
Yeah, I applied to Carleton Journalism, and I maintain to this day, I think they might have made a mistake with my application because I don't think I met the minimum requirements, but they accepted me the week before Christmas.
wow.
Whoa.
I don't even know if I'd applied by that point.
I know.
Yeah.
Which I maintain, I think they made a mistake with my application because I'm pretty sure you needed an 85 in English and I had like an 80.
Maybe you applied to the wrong program.
It was definitely Carleton Journalism. So I don't know, but yeah, it's application process. I think nowadays is probably a bit easier because there's less extra stuff you have to do from my understanding. It's a lot more based on academics, which I guess requires more work during the school year,
Yeah.
but it mitigates the process a little bit. And you had to deal with, well, I guess you didn't have to deal with it because you came in our year. And it's so weird when I look at our program and I see that there are a lot of people who aren't actually our age. Like I know like you aren't, Hunter Surplus isn't, I believe, either. I think he went to Western.
I think
vaguely
so.
remember. I want to say Ivan Ellis isn't our age either.
Yeah, he's a year older than me, I believe.
He's a year older than you. Wow.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. So if you're thinking about applying to Ryerson Sport Media and you're older than what you think should apply because it doesn't really hurt at all. But
for sure.
let's get back to sort of your experience at Ryerson. One of the first things that you did was you've done stuff with Rams Live. So what has that experience been like for you? And what have you sort of learned from doing all of these broadcasts?
Those have been really cool. And I remember at first it was more educational and also stressful and just kind of, I was worried about messing up, even though I think for the first 2 or 3, I just did camera. But after a while, like all of the ones I did last year, they're just fun. Like it's because most people by that point, and you're kind of getting into roles that you actually want to do. Like you start learning what you like doing rather than just trying out everything to figure that out. So by the time you figure that out, and by the time you kind of get to know the group of people who are all awesome that do Rams Live, it's tons of fun. And it's like 6-7 hours out of your Friday night sometimes, but it's totally worth it. And it's a really good time. It's among other things, it's sad to see that, on pause for now this year.
Did you ever get the chance to do any hosting with that?
No. And I don't know if I would. On camera has always been like, I like it, but I don't know if I want to go into that anyways. And I don't know. I've thought about it. I definitely don't think I'd want to commentate or anything. I just don't have the faith in myself to be that quick. But I don't know, maybe next year. If it happens next year, I'll probably host
try it out. Yeah.
Do something like that once just to do it before I graduate.
Yeah, we'll see if we are back to school by then.
Yeah.
Which 3 months ago we would have said, oh, for sure, we will be back for second semester.
Yeah.
And we've already canceled second semester at the beginning of the first one. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. They've started this new Rams Rewind thing broadcast. So at least they're doing that. And I think there's still openings for that sort of thing. But yeah, if you want to consume that, go and find it. I don't really know where they post all that stuff. Do you guys know where they post it?
I think it was just an email that was sent out.
Yeah, I saw that, but I'm not sure like how they're broadcasting.
How they're broadcasting it.
Yeah.
Maybe I can find out.
Yeah, Aiden will try to find that out while we ask you more about your entire Ryerson experience, beginning with your first, I guess, sort of outside of school experience with Ryerson people in the Year 5 collective. So far, we've had, how many of you on? I think 3 of your group on. So I won't list off all the names again, because if you want to see that, you can go back to the Patrick Talon episode. I believe he was involved with that. And I list all the people there. But I believe he said, I think it was him, you did all of the background running the website stuff, correct?
Yes.
So what was that entire experience like, running a website with a ton of other people sort of submitting work to you?
It was really cool. And I remember how that got started. Like, I definitely cannot take credit for the idea at all. It's something that we'd kind of talked about a few times throughout the year, and no one ever really got around to actually getting it together. But it was after I'd gone home after first year, and it was just after 1 or 2 weeks of being at home, and we were just talking like, hey, do we actually want to finally do this? And we're like, yeah, might as well. Like, we're all done for the year and we're off for the summer. It'll, give us somewhere to write. So I spent an evening learning how to use Wix and putting together a site. And from there, like, once you have it set up, it's pretty straightforward. Like, people, it was just, everyone was very independent. We put together a little schedule. So, like, at first we tried to say, let's have this many articles up in this amount of time. And for a while we kept that up. But we had a schedule going, and people would just write whatever they wanted. And then they would go on and just submit it. And it would fall under the homepage. It would fall under their name bar. And then eventually we also got everyone's radio shows that they were doing up there at the time. It was but like, yeah, overall it was a really cool experience to do with everyone involved, a great group of people. And I think for the most part everyone was just kind of using it as a platform to put on whatever they wanted at the time. There weren't really any rules about what gets posted, and people would write when they want and post when they want. So yeah, it was really cool.
What would you say was your biggest takeaway from doing that then?
I think 2 things. One being, it's a lot easier than it looks to create a nice looking website. And like, I'll be honest, I still don't really have any, but I had no web design experience. But just after a few hours, like all those programs, they're pretty foolproof. And I really like how the look of the website turned out. I was really happy with it. And that's a lot easier to do than it seems. So that was definitely one. And another, I think, from more of a personal and how I write standpoint, I don't like doing short stories. I don't like writing stories about things that anyone can just go find for themselves. I don't like writing recaps or previews. I don't see not to say there's no point in it, but personally, I just don't see why I should be writing about that, because I don't think anyone wants to hear what I have to say about a certain game that happened. So I kind of channeled my writing into more, like I said before, longer feature sort of conceptual ideas that maybe people wouldn't really think of. And I'd kind of do the work that went into it to come to whatever conclusion I would get to. So I think just from a writing standpoint, that helped me realize what kind of writing I like to do.
So how many stories did you do? And could you give us like maybe a bit of an idea of like one of your stories, who it was on, sort of thing?
Yeah, I think I did 4, and I'm going to go there now. I think I did 4. I did one on NBA playoffs and how playing at home and away compared in like the past decade of playoffs. I did an interview with Jason Robertson, the Dallas Stars forward. just as an article in itself. And then there's one more in there. And then my favorite one that I did was, I don't even know what you'd call it, but I sort of created a formula in a way that was analyzing how important it is for NHL teams to be hot when they enter the playoffs. So, and I can pull that up now, but it was essentially, how late season performance affected playoff success. So it's essentially looking at the last 10 years, starting at 2010. And I did this last summer. Starting in 2010, I looked at the formula was the last the last 10 games of the team's season, and then you consider their playoff finish and their regular season finish, and you kind of determine, how important was it to this team that they were on a hot streak going into the playoffs. It'd look at where they finished in the regular season. So if a team finished 15 out of 16 going into the playoffs, but they were on an 8-2 run, where did they finish, in the playoffs? And if they finished high, that kind of supported the argument that yes, going into the playoffs hot is very important. And in the end, for the most part, it did kind of suggest that, like, there were some
Pittsburgh, right? In 2015, I think they're like one of the hottest teams, or 2016.
Yeah. I wrote down two of them. So the LA in 2012.
Right.
They went into the playoffs. If I can find them here, they went into the playoffs in 13th, and they finished their regular season 5-2-3. No, I wouldn't call that really streaking, maybe a bit, but they finished first. So that doesn't really support the argument I was making. So beside that, I'd write down a number that I got from the formula somehow, and whether it, correlated with the argument I was trying to make. But then you go down to Nashville in 2017. Nashville finished 16th in the regular season. They went in 5-4-1, and by whatever rule I used, I said yes, that is a streaking team. They finished second in the playoffs, so that supported the argument. Again, the Lightning in 2019. Well, you know what? I'll use St. Louis, because St. Louis's run last year was kind of the reason I wrote this article. Mm-hmm. St. Louis enters the playoffs in 12th on 8-1-1, definitely streaking, and they win the cup. So that one was, I think, the strongest argument for. So I mean, yeah, like I don't have to give all the examples, but it was just kind of looking at the numbers like that. In short, that was probably my favorite article. I believe there was another one. I think I did 4, I guess. Yes. The article on the playoff format, specifically looking at Tampa and Columbus last year. Is the playoff format why teams are losing? Good teams are losing. I argue no. I won't go into it too much, but I think those were the 4, the interview, and then the 3 sort of longer pieces.
Nice.
So how long do you think one of those articles would take you to write?
It varies. I mean, like, the interview was the interview, and then it just took a while to transcribe it. The longest one probably wasn't the streaking into playoffs one. It was probably the NBA
home and away
odds at home and away, because, and I was actually just at home, like my home, and I found the sheets that I did it on. I went through every NBA playoffs from 2010, I believe, until last summer. And I looked at every single series that was played, in the last 10 playoffs, and if the home or away team won each game. And that wasn't even really the point of the article. That was just one kind of supporting argument. So in retrospect, I probably didn't have to spend all my time going through the Basketball Reference website trying to see if home team or away team is winning. That took me like a few days of just tallying numbers. In terms of the writing process, I honestly find writing when you're writing about something you want to write about, and all 4 of those articles were definitely something I wanted to write about, it went by really fast because, like it's just kind of flowing. You're not kind of grinding and thinking about what you want to put out there. Obviously you're kind of forming it in the way you want, but all of those articles writing about something I want to write about, it went by a lot quicker than, I even anticipated.
Talk a little bit about the article you did, or the interview you did with Jason Robertson. How did that come about? How did you get that interview with him, first of all? Did you have to reach out to him? How did you reach out to him? Did you know him? Or and how did it go?
So I know him. It's kind of funny. I know him through a sort of a family connection, I guess. Not related in any way, but there is a connection there. And I was working. Last summer I was working at Cleveland's House Resort up in the Muskokas, and he was there visiting. That said connection that I had. He was there visiting, and I chatted with him for a bit. We were just kind of hanging out, talking about. We talked about because it was right after the World Juniors.
Oh, so you knew who he was?
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we were talking about his World Juniors, and it was real because I'd never really talked to someone like that. We were talking about World Juniors and stuff, and kind of got to know him a little bit. And I just kind of eventually asked, I don't know if I asked then or I reached out later, but I just asked, can we do a quick interview? Just nothing specific. Can I do an interview for the website? And it worked out. So yeah.
Nice.
That's pretty cool. It's a good connection to have there.
Yeah.
For the future. And he's relatively young, right?
Yes. He's
is he in the AHL or is he in the NHL?
He's sort of both. He was in the bubble this year. He warmed up once, I think. He played I think 3 games last season.
Yep, you're right about that.
This year he'll probably jump back and forth, but I like, just from an objective standpoint, I do think he'll establish himself eventually. He's my age. He's July 22nd, 1999.
Yeah, he's only 21. Yeah. That's very young in his NHL career.
Second round pick.
I guess, did you know him when he got drafted?
No.
No? Okay.
No, I did not. No.
It's still interesting, talking to somebody in that sort of role. I've met Gordon Miller 3 times, I think, because his daughter went to my middle school and high school, and he did our careers day for 2 years. I set up a separate meeting with him through my advisor as well. He's a great person as well, but yeah, it's just interesting talking to them and hearing what they have to say. And did you meet anyone else while you were the social media coordinator for Cleveland House Resort?
No.
You didn't meet
Jimmy
anyone?
Kimmel. No. So I worked there it's kind of funny. I worked there front desk the year before, and Brad May was actually there. I met him briefly. But no, there are quite a few people that go to that because it's on the Muskokas, right? So everyone has their cottage up there. Paul Rudd was there this summer. I didn't get to meet him.
That's a big one.
Jimmy Kimmel and Eugene Levy, Martin Short was around. Mitch Marner was there. Again, didn't get to meet him. Some of my friends got photos with him. I think that's it.
It's a lot.
Makes sense. Knowing the Muskokas, I think I knew Marner had a place up there
somewhere. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the Leafs probably do at this point, especially the ones from Toronto, which we'll touch on some of the Leafs from Toronto a little bit later. But let's sort of wrap up We'll touch on your social media work very quickly, and we'll wrap up with what you're doing right now, which I didn't realize you were doing until researching for this interview. But final thing we need to mention is stability.
Oh, yeah.
You were the social media coordinator for them for 4 months last summer.
Yeah.
At the same time as the Cleveland House Resort, correct?
Yeah. So Cleveland's House was like my full-time summer job. Stability was an internship, like a remote internship. It's based out of Syracuse, I believe. And essentially it was, I was a social media intern sort of creating content. So what Stability is, I guess I should say, first of all, is it's a, I don't know if it's a company, but it's a company that sort of, it's like an Airbnb for events. So, and mostly like athletics events. So if there's like, specifically, I worked on the Canoe Kayak Canada account, the Snowboard Canada account, and one more, rowing, like real rowing account. And essentially what it is if one of those groups is, going to a tournament, Stability sort of partners with like local, it could be local residents, or just local opportunities where they can sleep, like where they can stay. So it's sort of like a broad Airbnb in that sense. But what I did, I was sort of creating content on Instagram and Twitter for those three accounts that I mentioned with Stability. So it was just sort of creating content for those accounts to kind of partner with and market with those three areas, I guess.
And has that helped you at all with your current position, which is as a runner for Sportsnet?
I don't know. Maybe. I think the biggest thing I got from Stability was seeing how like a bigger company operates its social media, because it's not like someone's going in and doing all the posting on all the accounts just manually. Like I would create content and I would put it somewhere, and then it kind of gets automated and put into feeds and stuff. So that was kind of interesting to learn. Whether it translates to where I am now, maybe, though I can't say I really have too much of a hand in social media where I am now. But it was definitely good in the sense that you're kind of working on a larger platform and seeing how things kind of function behind the scenes.
So what does your role at Sportsnet specifically entail?
So as a runner, nothing fancy, that's for sure. It's essentially just a production assistant, I guess, in a way, just doing day-to-day tasks on like when I first joined, it was hot for Hockey Night in Canada and Wednesday night hockey roles. But obviously that changed when the new playoffs came out. They were, working they had a runner on every night because they had a panel every night. So whenever there's a panel working, there's a runner working. So it's just day-to-day tasks, printing all the necessary game notes and statistics and stuff for the commentators. Something like getting meals together for the commentators. Just kind of like it's just a lot of very small tasks, working in the studio and around the control room and stuff, just doing what needs to be done, making sure everyone has what they need. So it's a pretty fun role. Again, nothing super involved when it comes to a live sport production, but not definitely a necessary role. But it's just kind of being there and completing all the things that need to be done to get a production off smoothly.
People at Sportsnet, you heard that. it's a necessary role. Don't
Yeah.
fire him, please.
Yeah, it's a good step, like, to get your foot into the door, because now, being around all these people, you meet people and they see what you can do, they gain your trust, and then, hey, maybe you work your way up, right? So I
Yeah,
think everybody has to start somewhere. That's what they pushed with us in first year, right? Like, if you can become a runner at Sportsnet in third year, that's pretty amazing. That's really good.
Yeah, it's really good to get a foot in the door, and especially with
Mhm.
like a bona fide organization in Canada in the sport media game.
Yeah.
That's very impressive. But
How did you get
that
in? Yeah, how did you get into that?
beat me to the question?
They were hiring, and well, they weren't, like, I guess, openly hiring, but it was a connection through Ryerson. They were looking for new runners, and someone I know at Ryerson, it's like someone in the industry kind of referred me, I guess, and it just kind of put me in touch with the people that were making those hires, and yeah, it just kind of went from there.
Nice.
That's pretty good. And is this like a job or an internship?
It's a job, yeah. So
Job.
right now, obviously, with because I only work NHL, with no NHL, I'm not on. But whenever the NHL comes back, I'll be back too.
Sick.
Yeah, and that might be inching closer, as there was an announcement with the AHL today, which we'll dive into once we talk sports, which will probably be in very next 5 minutes, because our final question, which is one that we ask every person who comes on, is what are your 5 suggestions /
Is it 5? I thought it
takeaways?
was 3. Was it
Oh,
5?
3. 3, sorry. What are your 3 suggestions / takeaways from your experience in sport media and your experience at Ryerson? I know we started
Should have
off
told you
tough
in
and we
advance.
end it even tougher.
I think one of them, and something I kind of wish I knew coming in, was like, everyone's going to have areas of strength that they are aware of before they come into the program or to the industry in general. That's for sure. I don't think anyone would come in just kind of not really hot on anything, right? So everyone's going to have those aspects of the industry, and I think that's a good thing, but I think it's important to kind of keep that in mind, but maybe push it to the side a bit and go in. And everyone says, go in with an open mind. And I guess that's what I'm saying, is just go in not driven on whatever you're entering with. Go in and just take everything, on an equal level, take everything objectively, and sort of don't close yourself off to something just because you assume that you won't be interested, because that's just something I wish I knew, because there's a lot of things that I never really would have figured I'd want to do until I was kind of forced into it. So that's probably one.
I think that's like 3. I think you're good.
I think okay, if that's 3, then I'll take it. Yeah,
Yeah.
there is a lot to unpack there.
It's midterm season. We don't have to do any extra work here.
We won't make you think that hard. We've already made you struggle enough. But yeah, you've had a very, very interesting journey, I think, is one of the big takeaways from this. And that interesting journey obviously isn't unique to you. Like there will be people who have a very similar experience to that. And
Sure.
if you are considering applying, if you're some person who somehow found this podcast, just understand that just because you think just because you think you may not be qualified, don't be afraid to give it a second chance, as Luke did. And as you mentioned,
And you got to work for it too.
Yeah, you got to work for it is the big thing. And get your foot in the door as early as you can is probably a big thing. Not everybody is as fortunate as Luke to have a foot in the door at Sportsnet.
He's earned it, though. He's earned it.
But he has earned it, and that's the big thing. You need to earn it. So, yeah, I guess that's sort of the end of our interview section. It was a long interview portion.
It's been long. Yeah.
We're going to have a long podcast today, which is probably a good thing because it isn't just limited to NHL this week in terms of content. But yeah, we'll be back right after this break and see you then. All right, and we are back from talking everything Luke to talk everything sports. And we're starting off with a couple of quickies, particularly focused on the NBA, because these stories broke today and we want to see more information come out about them. But basically, to begin with, we'll start with the positive news and then get to the very not positive news. Daryl Mori was hired to oversee the Philadelphia 76ers basketball operations. We're not really sure what that's going to entail for the Sixers organization or what sort of happens in that situation, but it'll be interesting to see how this entire thing plays out. And yeah, he certainly bounced back pretty quickly after leaving the Houston Rockets GM position. That's probably putting it lightly, but not so positive news. It came out this morning that Terence Davis, the point guard / shooting guard for the Toronto Raptors, was arrested in New York City for assault. I believe it was assault of the third degree and public mischief for what is being reported as hitting his girlfriend. So we're going to wait to see what more information comes out about this. But basically the crux of it is, if he did this, he is no longer a Toronto Raptor. It's the same situation as what happened with Roberto Osuna to me.
Yep.
As simple as that. They trade him. You shouldn't even be in the NBA at that point, in my opinion. But we have to wait to see what comes out, and we're not going to comment on just what will happen or the entire situation until we know more. So we'll potentially talk about it next week. If there's more information, we might have to even push it to a couple weeks later, depending on how the Toronto Raptors investigation goes, because they're launching one, and the criminal investigation and everything around that. But moving on to some positive news in a sport that we literally never talk about, and it is a sport. Anybody who says otherwise is wrong. F1, Formula One. My dad is he followed it very closely when I was younger. Doesn't follow it as much anymore, but he was a big Michael Schumacher fan. And Michael Schumacher this weekend, I believe he was second. He might have been third, but Lewis Hamilton, the McLaren driver, you've definitely seen pictures of him. He's one of the only drivers of color in the F1 field. Is now the all-time race winning leader. I don't know how they word it, but he's won the most races of all time in F1. He just won his 92nd race over the weekend, which is it's unbelievable that he's been able to do that. And obviously he has a good car in McLaren, but I believe he's McLaren. He might be Mercedes. I can't remember.
I don't know.
I get them mixed up. But he's a very, very good driver. And to pass Michael Schumacher, because I believe it was him. Let me actually fact check that. Because I want to get that right and not ruin anybody's name.
Sorry, Kyle Cushman, if you're listening.
He doesn't follow F1 though. I don't think. I think he's mostly NASCAR. I was right.
Okay.
It was Michael Schumacher. He is second with Sebastian Vettel is third. Interesting.
That's very interesting.
You have no idea who that is. I recommend, if you are interested in F1 or just want to sort of looking for something interesting to watch, the Netflix series where they follow the entire F1 season is unbelievable. It is so good. So I would recommend watching that, because it's I can't recommend something like that show enough. It's really, really good. But transitioning away to another sport that we don't really talk about much on here, in the UFC. So Kyle, if you're listening to this show, you're having a great time right now. But Khabib Nurmagomedov, I knew I was going to mess that up. I'd practiced it before too. Nurmagomedov. He is the guy who attacked or who was attacked by Conor McGregor after McGregor had won a fight, I believe.
I think it was the other way around,
Or was
right?
it the other way around?
Yeah.
It might have it would
And
make
then he
sense
went
if
into
it
the
were the other way
stands.
around.
Khabib
Yeah.
climbed the fence or whatever and went into the stands. Yeah, that's how
Yeah.
I remember him too. But he's also one of the best fighters in the game. Probably the best.
I believe he finished his he retired this weekend. I believe he finished his career 19-0. He beat
29-0. 29-0.
29-0.
Yeah.
That's a big difference. He beat Justin Gaethje, who is an unbelievable fighter as well. And I just want to give Khabib the utmost respect. The reason he is stepping away is because his father passed away back in, I believe it was early July, and he was his trainer, and he doesn't want to fight without his dad with him. So massive, massive respect to him, massive respect to him going out on top. And he will go down as one of the best fighters of all time. I don't think there's even a conversation about that. And one of the things that came out after the fight apparently was he was planning to take Gaethje out with, I believe it was an armbar, but midway through the fight, he changed his strategy because Gaethje's parents were there, and he knew Gaethje wouldn't tap, so he didn't want to break Gaethje's arm in front of his parents.
Oh my
So he
gosh.
switched to a chokehold.
Wow.
That's how good he is. So
Yeah, I've heard some pretty crazy things about Khabib. I've heard that he like talks to Dana White during his fights. Like when he had the fight with Conor McGregor, he was just during like between each round, he would say to Dana like, Dana, I'm gonna beat your boy. I'm gonna beat your boy, Dana. I'm gonna beat your boy. And like just tripping him, like telling him exactly what he's gonna do and stuff. So yeah, I mean he's a pro.
He's a phenomenal fighter, and some of the workouts he's done, like he does, is just absolutely insane. Like they're not traditional workouts at all. It's like swimming in a frozen river sort of thing. Because he's from like Russia, I think. But yeah,
He's Muslim too.
I believe. I think so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he is. Yeah, he's really humble in that sense.
Yeah. Either way, he's just unbelievable fighter. He's going to go down as one of the best ever. But let's transition to NFL. Obviously, we should mention Luke doesn't really follow these sports that we're going really quickly through. So we're just trying to quick fire stuff. If you want to comment at all, jump in.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll hit NFL quickly. Odell Beckham Jr. tore his ACL and is now out for the season. Either of you have any thoughts on that?
Sucks for the Browns. You know, they were playing okay. Jarvis Landry's going to have to step up. And I think like the thing with Beckham is that he gets hurt like every year now. So that really hurts his value if the Browns were to ever trade him. I don't really want to talk too much about it, but yeah, it sucks for the Browns.
Clearly. What doesn't suck for the Ravens, though, is them signing Des Bryant.
Yeah.
Which, interesting signing.
Yeah, that's a big signing. Like the Ravens are already scary, and they just got a guy who could, you know, come in and be their WR2 potentially. Maybe not right away, but he's gonna have to work for that. Maybe he can turn into their number one receiver. You never know. But you know, he's been out of the league for I think a year now, maybe 1 or 2 years. So he's a little bit rusty probably, but I'm sure he's been training on the side and stuff. And like he's still a very good receiver, and he's still a really big man. And you know, if the quarterback, if Lamar Jackson, you know, lobs a ball up to him one-on-one, it's not a 50-50 ball. It's still going to be that 70-30 ball you're getting with Des Bryant. And yeah, I mean, it's a great signing for the Ravens. And if the Ravens ever want to compete with the Chiefs, they're going to need a better wide receiver core. So Bryant helps with that. It's very high risk with Bryant, but very high reward if it works out.
Yeah, and I believe it's only a 1-year contract. So it'll be interesting to see what Lamar Jackson can do with him. But yeah, making that receiving core much better, which can you say the same thing about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers signing Antonio Brown, which have we not realized that the Antonio Brown situation doesn't work anymore?
I don't know. I think it could work out. Like, I know Bruce Arians has said, like, be a team player or you're out. Like, that's what he said to Brown, and he said that publicly. So, Antonio Brown has to realize that this is his last chance. Like, there's not going to be another team that will take a chance on you. I think the main reason why the Bucks took the chance is because of Tom Brady. And you saw what Brady and Brown were able to do last year in the few games that they played in. And, they always have said that they wanted to play with each other. So, I don't know if Brown's going to be like their number one target, because they already have Mike Evans. They have Chris Godwin. They have Rob Gronkowski. So I don't know. I think it definitely helps the Bucks wide receiver core a lot. Yeah, very high risk, very high reward. It's kind of the same with Bryant. I think there's obviously less risk with Dez Bryant, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm that concerned about it as much about it as other people will be.
Agreed, I guess, maybe. I think it's a big risk, and I don't think it's going to work out, because if we're going based off history...
Definitely don't agree then.
Yeah, I don't know why I said I agree. I kind of agree. I think it could work out, but I think there's a higher probability of it not working out because of who Antonio Brown is.
Yeah.
And the, let's say, history he has of not exactly working with teams. But yeah, we'll move on to another situation, which it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, but we'll touch on it after we talk about what's important, and that is the World Series.
Well, let's talk about the case first, I think, because I want to go in on Kevin Cash.
Okay, before you go in on Kevin Cash, I want to read you...
Let's go in on the MLB.
No, I want to read you a statement from the
Okay.
MLB.
Okay.
They issued this. Ken Rosenthal just tweeted this about 2 hours ago. It said, and it reads, immediately upon receiving notice from the laboratory of a positive test, protocols were triggered, leading to the removal of Justin Turner from last night's game. Turner was placed into isolation for the safety of those around him. However, following the Dodgers' victory, it is clear that Turner chose to disregard the agreed-upon joint protocols and the instructions he was given regarding the safety and protection of others. While a desire to celebrate is understandable, Turner's decision to leave isolation and enter the field was wrong and put everyone he came in contact with at risk. When MLB security raised the matter of being on the field with Turner, he emphatically refused to comply. The commissioner's office is beginning a full investigation into this matter and will consult with the Players Association within the parameters of the Joint 2020 Operations Manual. Last night, nasal swabs were conducted on the Dodgers' traveling party. Both the Rays and Dodgers were tested again today, and their travel back to their home cities will be determined after being approved by the appropriate authorities. So it sounds like the MLB did everything it could. That's how I took that. And this was all Turner's fault.
I would agree. I mean, I think, like, because when you think about it, when you're put in a situation like that, what are you going, what are the people around him going to do? When they say, you start enacting protocols and yeah, he gets pulled off the field and he gets put into isolation. Obviously obviously he's not being forced into a room by himself and they're locking the door and leaving him there. I think they would have the expectation that he's going to be a reasonable, considerate human being in the matter. And he will understand, what the danger that he brings, and he will take that upon himself to isolate properly. So initially I'm like, wow, this is a really bad look for the MLB. This is a really bad look for the Dodgers. But I think when you get down to it, it's just a really bad look for him. Because it's not like he's going to run out onto the field and then get tackled by security because he's breaking isolation. I think he like their release said, he disregarded all notions that you should not be out there right now. And I circle back, like, what are they going to do? Are they going to escort him off the field? Like, I just don't think any of those things are really options. And I don't blame the MLB and I don't blame the Dodgers for not thinking that this would happen, because I think it's a fair expectation to put on your athletes that if you are in this position, and I mean, it's crazy in the first place, right? In a World Series clinching game that someone gets pulled from the game because they've received a positive test. That's insane just on its own. But you would think that all these athletes, if they were put in that crazy situation, they would understand and they would comply. So I agree with you, Connor. I think this is totally on Turner, and he's embarrassed the league and he's embarrassed his team, and it's, hopefully nothing horrible comes of it, but just a stupid decision. And a lot of organizations are going to receive flack for it, when I really think it's just one person disregarding the rules. So I do think, the media and the fan bases and everyone investigating the matter will kind of reach that conclusion. And I hope to see whatever punishment is due is handed out. But I mean, it's just a really crappy situation to end. But they got it done, and this is just how it ended. And it's just like, come on, like, you couldn't just have the World Series, just end it and get everyone home safely. Like, no, this had to happen. And it's a really bad look. And I think it just comes down to Turner.
And before I let Aiden go off on his rant, I think we should add a little bit more context to the entire situation. So basically what happened was yesterday, or I guess the day before that. So Monday, they received an inconclusive test result for Turner.
Mm-hmm.
They tested him again, and those results came back during, I guess, around the beginning of
second inning.
The MLB game. But obviously, it would take some time to communicate this is what happened and enact the acceptable protocols. So Turner starts for the Dodgers, and then second inning, they find out the result. They pull him from the field.
Wait, no, I don't think they did pull him in the second inning, though. I think they pulled him in the fourth inning.
The fourth inning.
Yeah.
Did they just lie in their statement then?
Because, yeah, Justin Turner had 3 at-bats. So it was definitely not the second inning. It was, let me see if I can take a look. Oh my God, that might have been, it was bottom of the fourth inning. He had an at-bat in the bottom of the fourth inning.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's so...
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. Bottom of the 6th inning, Justin Turner flies out to deep left field to Randy Arozarena. Yeah, he almost hit a home run. That was the 6th inning. The 6th inning.
Where did I get the second inning from?
No, second inning, they found out that he tested positive.
I didn't watch the game. Did he have any RBIs or anything?
No,
did he have any actual scoring impact on the game?
No, he had 2 strikeouts, 3 at-bats.
That would have added another level to this. That would have been...
Yeah.
But he almost hit a home run, yeah.
How did it take
exactly? No, that's my point.
Communicate, though. Like, it's got to just be like one phone call. Hey, he's got a positive test.
Yeah.
He can't be on the field. They call down to the dugout. Hey, you got to pull him from the field because he might infect the entire MLB.
Dude, but like, okay, first of all, when I first heard that too, like, and Luke said it, like, it's crazy how in the World Series clinching game, this happens, right? What a coincidence, right? In the final game, this happens. MLB's gone through. So
yes,
exactly,
as
coincidence.
If this didn't happen before.
Exactly. Like, look at what the MLB did with the Marlins in August or whatever. They knew they had positive tests for the virus, and they still let them play the game. I am 99% sure this is what happened in last night's game. I think the Dodgers knew. The Rays must have known as well. The MLB knew that Justin Turner had COVID, and they still let him play. And they tried to cover it up by taking him out after 6 innings, I guess.
What if the MLB knew and the Dodgers knew, but the reason he got pulled was Tampa Bay found out? This is a wild conspiracy theory,
I don't
and
know.
there's absolutely nothing backing this up at all. But what if Tampa Bay found out and they said, what the hell is happening to the MLB?
I don't know. Geez, that's a lot to process.
Would it surprise you?
You'd have to wonder how, like, what the communication lines are, like, who, because I don't know, but like I'd assume third party, whatever are conducting these tests, and do they, like, upon a notable result, do they tell the MLB first? Do they tell the team first? So you'd have to wonder, are the Rays somewhere in there along how this is released? That, like, you bring up a good point. I would hope not, right? Like, I'd hope that wasn't the reason they pull a COVID positive person from the field, just because the Rays finally found out. But I mean, I guess it's possible, really.
It's
I don't know,
definitely,
man.
look, it's unlikely. Very, very unlikely. We should get that out there right now. But there is the remote possibility where they played him knowingly. And I think that's the big issue here.
And also, like, I just found it, like, I was watching it on Fox too, right? And they, after the Dodgers have their celebration, before the trophy gets handed out, they cut to commercial. And then after the commercial break, they go to the guy at Fox News at the panel, and he breaks the news to everyone. And I don't know, it seemed so suspicious, like they planned that out like hours in advance, like the way that he scripted it, everything. It's like they were ready for it right away. Like, he was just like, we have breaking news. It didn't sound like breaking news at all. It was like he rehearsed this like so many times. I'm pretty sure. And of course it's Fox News too, right? MLB probably teamed up with Fox News to do this. Like, I was just like, oh my God, are you serious right now? I swear to God, MLB definitely knew that he had COVID. Definitely.
I wonder if they were trying to keep this hidden and somebody found out
Yeah,
and they threatened to break the story.
I
And they
think it
said,
might have been
"Nope, give
it
us
might have been
time."
the lab. I think the lab might have had something to do with it. They probably told MLB that, yeah, Turner has COVID. Then, they're obviously, watching the game. They see that he's playing. The lab calls them back up or whatever, says, hey, you got to get this guy out of the game because we're going to lose credibility too. You got to get him out or we'll like press charges or something, right? And then that's how they took him out. That could be a reason.
There are so many variables here that we just don't know about. And because of the way that the MLB has handled COVID up until now, we're constantly thinking about the negative ones.
Yeah.
We're not thinking about, oh, maybe there was some sort of communications issue that led to him not getting pulled until the 6th inning. But we immediately go to, no, they did this on purpose, which I think is more of an indictment on the MLB, personally, because nobody has faith in that league to do anything right at this point. And it's going to be interesting to see what this investigation and what the punishment is handed out to him.
Yeah.
But I don't think it will be that severe, and I think it will get brushed under the rug because they're going to want people to forget about this as soon as possible. And punishing him will only bring it back into the news.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. It was a terrible way to end a good World Series, would you say?
That's very entertaining. Yeah, game was game number 4, I think.
Four.
Game 4 with that crazy walk-off. One of the most exciting bottom of the 9th innings or half innings I've ever seen. And then I guess we got to get into last night's game. And, Tampa Bay, they're up 1-0. And, things are looking good, right? Like, Blake Snell's having a phenomenal game. He's only given up 1 hit. I think it's the 6th inning, only 1 hit, 72 pitches. That's a very good pitch count in the 6th inning. The Dodgers can't hit anything. But it takes 1 hit in the 6th inning that the Dodgers get. And for some reason, Kevin Cash decides to pull Blake Snell. I don't get it. After 2 hits, 72 pitches, it didn't make any sense to me. And you already know what's going to happen. Mookie Betts is the next batter. He hits a double. And now there's runners at second and third. Next pitch, you got an error on the catcher. 1 run scores, we're tied. Then I'm pretty sure Corey Seager came up. I think he hit a single. Betts will score. An infield single to make it worse, yeah. And it's 2-1. It was the dumbest decision that Kevin Cash has made probably the entire season, probably his entire coaching career, because Cash is a good manager, first of all. He's made all the right moves up until this last game, making lineup decisions, replacing pitchers, going with the setup man, going with the closer, like finding these guys too, like Randy Arozarena. Like, who would have thought this guy would actually be something in the playoffs? And Kevin Cash gave him the chance to, be great, be something. That Brett Phillips move looks pretty darn good now. And I just don't understand this move from Cash yesterday. It didn't make any sense to me. Snell's rolling. Snell's your number one guy. You got to keep him in the game for as long as he can go. And only 72 pitches. It's crazy to me. And that's what cost them the game. I think if Snell stays in the game, then there will be a game 7. And hey, if the Rays win this game, who knows if we ever find out about this Justin Turner case if we go to game 7. So it was the dumbest move of the season. You see so many guys on social media just ripping Kevin Cash over it now, like Steven Stamkos, I think, tweeted stuff out. Marcus Stroman, Trevor Bauer, big MLB guys. And you hate to see it because in the World Series, it's game 6. You want the best against the best. And Snell was taken out too early. I think, in the Dodgers dugout, they're frustrated. Obviously, they can't hit anything against Snell. And they're like, oh no, we're gonna have to face a game 7 situation here. But then Kevin Cash comes out and he takes him out. And then all of a sudden there's life in the Dodgers dugout, and they just went off of that and they just dominated. Betts hit a home run late in the game too. And yeah, it sucks for the Rays. But I guess you got to look at the Dodgers and what they've been able to do here. They've been knocking at the door for the past, 4 years, especially, making it to the World Series 3 out of the 4 years. Clayton Kershaw, I thought he should have won MVP. Had a phenomenal series, 11 innings, only 2 earned runs. He deserves it more than anyone. Dave Roberts, everybody was questioning his job security if they had lost this series. Kenley Jansen has also been on the Dodgers for a while, so he's finally won the championship now. So, you got to give credit to the Dodgers. They've been, wanting this World Series for a long, long time, and they were going to get it eventually. And it was a great team. The Dodgers were the most complete team in the MLB, so shout out to them. They deserve it, and they're going to be good for many, many years to come because they have Mookie Betts for the next 12 years.
Yeah, that's quite the contract. I wonder if the decision to pull Cash was to potentially have him be able to pitch in a game 7.
That's the only thing that I was thinking too, Connor. But 72 pitches, and I don't know if he's going to be ready for today's game. Right? There's no day off, and he already threw 72 pitches the game before. Like, that's not how Tampa Bay has worked their pitching in the past. At least they're so confident in their bullpen, and that's why Cash was so confident in moving out Snell when he did. He thought their bullpen would come in and just shut the door, but they collapsed at the worst possible time. I think, if you're looking at a possible game 7 now, it would be Walker Buehler for the Dodgers against Charlie Morton for the Tampa Bay Rays. And I think they were very confident that Morton could give them 6+ innings in that game, because he's been amazing in game 7 situations and throughout his whole career, really, going back to his days with the Astros. And then they're, like I said, very confident in the bullpen. So I just don't understand. I don't think there was any chance they would go with Snell today. Maybe if it went to extra innings, potentially. the move just makes no sense to me. And you hate to see it end like that. I wanted the best of the Rays against the best of the Dodgers, and we didn't get that last night.
Very, very fair. Luke, do you have anything you want to add to the whole World Series thing before I ask our final question on baseball before we take a break and jump to hockey?
No, I think Aiden's covered that pretty well.
All right. My final question before we go to break. You are the MLB. What is the punishment for Justin Turner and the Dodgers?
It's so hard to say right now,
Yeah.
honestly. It's like we don't know what the MLB is thinking. Like, we don't know what actually happened, right? We don't know. We don't know
assuming like Turner is, because just from I think our standpoint, at least from my standpoint, I would say Turner is. It sounds like he forced it, like he made that happen. Not to say the Dodgers aren't responsible for their own player, but like I said earlier, I just hope. I couldn't even ballpark a punishment, but I just hope whatever the punishment is, if that was all Turner's doing, I hope that's realized, and I assume it would be.
The reason I ask you this, sorry to cut you off, Aiden, is Steve Dangle just tweeted, and I thought it was initially, they've already announced the punishment, but it was just the tweet that I had read earlier, and he asked, "What do you think the punishment will be?" His theory is, or he says, he shouldn't play baseball in 2021. Minimum of a 6-digit personal fine and a 7-digit team fine.
Wow, that's a lot.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if he should get. I think he should definitely get fined. I don't know about the suspension in terms of games, but it's too soon to say, I think.
Because I think it's such a personal matter. Like it didn't really. Like in the context of everything, obviously it was involved with baseball, but the actual offense was a very personal, baseball exclusive offense. So I don't really know, what that would mean, but obviously the MLB has, they're in the position to enforce a league, like a suspension punishment. But like Aiden said, fined for sure. It'll be interesting to see if the team, what kind of punishment the team gets, but it's a very different case, because again, it was first of all, the COVID pandemic brings a lot of unique issues to the world of sports in the first place, but for him to break the rules in relation to COVID, not in relation to something happening on the field, I don't know. Like, I don't know where the line on punishments are there.
Here is what I think you should get, just to drill the point home. A game for every person you put at risk. Get that out of the way. And a $227,000 fine to represent every single person killed by COVID or who has died from COVID. Really drive that point home, that he put a lot of people at risk, and he's got to have some serious repercussions, because what's to stop somebody from doing that in the middle of next season?
Yeah. I think the thing with where I'm at is that Turner should be fined for, coming back onto the field during the celebration. That was totally unnecessary. You can't really blame the MLB for that. I think that was Turner's doing. But the fact that he stayed in for 4 more innings after the MLB found out that he was tested positive isn't really Turner's fault, I think.
That's a good point.
Right? So I think the MLB needs to get fined. Like, that is their doing. Or the Dodgers, right? It could have been the Dodgers who, I don't know.
Let me rephrase that. The number of people he interacted with and put at risk after the game.
Yeah, I like the idea. Yeah,
control. Really try to drive home that point. But we're about to run out of time on this call. So we're going to talk PWHPA and their huge announcement that happened over the past week, and the interview that Steve Dangle podcast did with Liz Knox. And we will talk all of the NHL stuff, including how just absolutely screwed the Vancouver Canucks our next offseason. So we'll be right back. All right, and we are back. We're going to try to finish everything on. We're not going to try. We are going to finish everything on this last Zoom call. So we're going to fire through some stuff really quick, starting with the massive announcement out of the PWHPA. They have announced that they have partnered with Spirit Deodorant for $1 million, which will be put into the Dream Gap Tour for 2021. It will help pay for marketing, operating costs, and add a significant amount of money to a purse, which the winning team will walk away with after their games. So I'm just going to run through quickly. Liz Knox appeared on the Steve Dangle podcast, and then I'll get your thoughts on this, basically everything I just sort of run through afterwards. But actually, let's do the deodorant first, and we'll start with the Liz Knox stuff, because she doesn't just focus on the deodorant deal, the sponsorship deal. So what do you two think about this agreement between between Secret and the PWHPA? Do you think this is a really good sign? Do you think that Secret's putting too much money in? Do you think that the PWHPA aren't smart for taking this money? Where do you sort of stand on this giant deal?
I don't really know what to make of it, to be honest. It's kind of surprising how they partnered with a deodorant company. $1 million, like, I don't think it's going to be anything game changing, to be honest. Like, yeah, some of the money you put in the dock, yeah, operating costs, marketing, it's going to help for sure. I just don't see it being that big of a thing. And like, do we know how long the partnership is for as well?
I think that amount is just for next season.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if it's going to be anything too big in the long run.
I think like from a financial standpoint, obviously I don't think it's bad per se. I would, I'd maybe agree with Aiden to a point. You know, it's $1 million, right? For a league like this, obviously it's going to help. But I think the most important take home is that it is kind of a sign in the right direction that this league and the organization can kind of move forward in establishing themselves, and like deservedly so. This is a very real transaction. I think it's really good to see that there are other like external organizations that take this seriously and take it like a business, and putting this kind of money in, and it's kind of they've put their money where, I don't know if their mouth is, but a lot of people are talking about this, and it's just nice to see that something's starting to come of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this is immediately following the NWHL announcement, which we talked about last week in, I'd say, a fair bit of detail. So you can go back and listen to that. But I think we should dive into the Liz Knox interview on the Steve Dangle podcast, because this was incredibly illuminating. And if you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. She said some pretty big things and hinted at some stuff, which I definitely want to talk about. But started off basically saying they don't know what the year has to offer. They do have a plan, but obviously we don't know what's going to happen. They've explored a bubble, which that's pretty big. So there would be a good chunk of players who wouldn't be able to do that because they have full-time jobs. Liz Knox, is one of them, but it's still a big move. Their biggest thing is they're hopeful they can get ice in the new year. But with COVID, we don't really know what's going to happen. She mentioned that last year, the NHL partnered events were amazing. Even though like she couldn't go, I think they sounded very, very positive. The franchises really liked it. I believe they went to Arizona and Chicago were two of the team cities they went to. And that's sort of an avenue that they want to continue to flourish and nurture, and just sort of that kind of environment. And those teams love the idea of having a female affiliated club. So it's no secret that the PWHPA, their ultimate goal is to be the equivalent of the WNBA to the NBA. That's their final goal. And she basically stated that outright on this podcast. She also mentioned that they're looking into some broadcasting, which is big because I think last year they were only on YouTube. And she said she can't say too much, but it's definitely on the radar. And Steve Dangle was hinting towards something big coming.
Wow.
So I have a feeling, this is personal belief, I have no facts behind this. I think there's going to be a broadcasting deal between, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if it was Sportsnet and the PWHPA fairly soon. Because
Luke, you gonna shut that down right now?
Yeah.
Can't say anything.
Because Sportsnet did broadcast the CWHL games. And a lot of the PWHPA are made up of former CWHL players. So the relationship's there. Add in the need for content filler with the pandemic, the positive PR.
Yeah, you're right.
I think we're getting close to that. I don't think it'll be through Twitch. Should make that clear immediately, because the NWHL already do stuff through Twitch, and I don't think the PWHPA would do that. I think this would either be another streaming service or a television service.
Where does the WNBA broadcast their games?
I think it's TSN and ESPN.
ESPN. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think that's right.
But I don't think ESPN does hockey.
I could see something on like the Sportsnet app as well, or like sportsnet.ca.
Sportsnet 360, Sportsnet World.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we have a deal with Sportsnet inching closer.
Mm-hmm.
Because,
Well, I think the fact that Dangle kind of brought it up also is enticing, right? So
yeah.
He
knows something. He definitely knows something. And you could tell on the podcast, he knew something and was trying to get it out of her, but he couldn't. So I think that's incredibly interesting. I think that's something we're going to talk about in potentially the next few weeks. Another thing we're going to talk about potentially in the next few weeks is merchandise. They are working towards it, hopefully the next couple months. I believe they released some t-shirts and stuff yesterday or a couple days ago. So maybe that's the initial release, but I think there's more coming. She said, hopefully with names on the back of shirts. So right now they don't have that, but that would be huge. And finally, we're jumping back to the investment sort of side of things. She said the nice thing about the secret investment coming out like right now is that other sponsors are now looking at this, like the bar has just now been set, and like they are looking at how they can step up. How do they show that they're equally invested in women's hockey as secret? Which she said she's sure this won't be the last big announcement by the PA. And I could see other deals coming up pretty soon, but I don't know if you have anything either of you want to add. Luke, if you have any insider information from Sportsnet, that'd be great.
Fortunately, no.
It's unfortunate.
Nah.
Yeah, we haven't been lucky enough to have any breaking news on here before. We didn't get Kyle Cushman at the exact right time when he broke the Joe Thornton story. But yeah, it's the PWHPA are in a good spot, and I think we're inching closer and closer to some sort of merger between the PWHPA, the NWHL, and the NHL. Personally, it feels like it's going in that direction. It just needs the NHL to have the money to do it, which nobody does. So that's a problem. But let's talk about the NHL, and we're going to do, because we don't have much time, we're going to quickly do that little quick fire thing Aiden and I did just the week after free agency. But instead of having him expand on every single player, which made it unbearably long, you only have one word. Good, bad,
Okay.
meh.
Okay.
Or
Meh.
Oh, that's so tough. Okay.
yeah. So I'm going to start with Connor Brown, signing a 3-year, $3.6 million extension with the Ottawa Senators. Aiden, we'll start with you.
I'm gonna say good.
Good.
Meh. That guy was a fourth-line player on the Leafs, and he's getting 3.6 per.
But it's
Come
Ottawa.
on.
Ottawa can
Yeah,
do it.
yeah,
I think.
it is Ottawa.
Ottawa can do it, but come on.
Hey, it's
I
just
guess.
one word answers, man.
Jake, we got to add a little bit to the end of it. Jake Virtanen, 2-year, 2.55 per with the Canucks. Luke, we'll let you go a little bit more in depth on this because it's a Canucks player. But good, bad, meh.
Good. Jake Virtanen can put up 50 points in a full season. I would call that right now. The only issue I have, for some reason, Virtanen and Canucks management never seem to get along. I don't know why, but they keep bringing him back. So they see something there. He's a good player. He's not a 6th overall player. I think everyone needs to drop their expectations that he's going to play as a 6th overall player. He's not. 2.55 million for 2 years. I'm very happy with that.
Yeah. I trust
right.
Luke. I'll say good.
I trust Luke as well, so we'll go good as well. Darian. Dennis Gurianov, 2 times 2.55 per. I believe this was with the Stars.
Yeah. I'm going to say great, if I can say that.
All right.
I'd keep it at good, I think.
Keep it at good? Okay.
All right. Good as well. Travis Dermott, 1 year, $874,125 with the Leafs.
Good.
Good.
Great. I'm doing this just to bother Aiden, by the way. He doesn't like Travis Dermott at all.
I like the contract, though. Like, to get him for that cheap, like, you can't really complain. But I still think he's going to get traded at some point. Not this year, but definitely soon.
We'll see. Josh Levo, former Leaf and Vancouver Canuck, signed a 1-year, $875,000 deal with the Calgary Canucks.
Good.
If his knee holds up, good.
Good. Sam Reinhart, 1 year, $5.2 million, settled with Buffalo.
I think that's a good deal.
Because it's Buffalo, I think that's good. Same thing with Ottawa. Like, because it was Ottawa, I'm fine with Connor Brown. Because it's Buffalo and the space they have, I think that's fine.
Meh. Because he's playing next to Taylor Hall and Jack Eichel, and he's going to cost them a small fortune next summer.
That's true.
Linus Ullmark, 1 year, 2.6 per, well, for the 1 year with Buffalo.
Meh. Or bad.
It's 1 year.
Or bad.
1 year contracts, I never really like to call bad.
True.
I wouldn't say it's good. I'd say meh.
Chris Tierney, 2 year, 3.5 per with the Sens.
Meh.
Meh.
We'll skip over the next one because we're going to talk about him a little bit. Tyler Bertuzzi, 3.5, awarded by arbitrator, 1 year.
Good.
In between meh and good. Again, it's only 1 year, and it's Detroit, so I don't really have a problem with it.
So mud.
Yep, mud. It's mud.
Yeah, mud. Yeah. Mood.
Mood. Yeah. Mood.
Yes.
And finally, Alex Galchenyuk, 1 year, 1.05 with the Sens.
That's good, I think.
Good. Yeah.
Good. I'll say this now, actually, before we talk Devin Taves, because the Staff and Graph podcast, which they're back, by the way. We released our first episode this morning. It took 6 hours of editing, which was a lot of work. So that is up. It is now Rachel Dory and Mike Stevens hosting it. So go and check that episode out, please. And yeah, please. Let's finish the players on Devin Taves, who was acquired by Colorado for 2 second-round picks, being sent to the New York Islanders. He then signed a 4-year, $4.1 per with the Avs. Good, bad, meh. And we're going to do not just the signing, but the trade too. So 2 of them.
I think the trade was good, if not great. And then I think the signing is also good.
Yeah, I would agree with both of those. Colorado, they're everything they do seems to be smart. I don't know. Yeah.
Their back end is just disgusting.
I didn't think they could make their team any better, but Joe Sakic proved me wrong. Taves, and then who knows, are they going to add someone else to their forward core?
I thought they were going to get Hall. I was almost certain they were going to get Hall. That would have been scary.
I think they could use one more winger, dare I say, and then they're set. They already have a ton of them, but I think they could use another top 6 winger, and they're really, really good.
They need one other thing. Goalie.
Yeah.
Philip Grubauer ain't a starter. He's not a 1. He's a 1B, 1A, 1B situation. And they're not getting that out of Pavel Francouz, who nobody had heard about going into last season.
I think they have a decent tandem there, to be honest. I think Grubauer, I don't think maybe he's not a 1A yet, but I think he can turn into that. He put up great numbers last year. So I think he's good. I think he's good enough at least. And then you got to remember that the Avs had Michael Hutchison as their goalie in the playoffs. Grubauer was not healthy for the playoffs. Francouz was not healthy for the playoffs. So I think if Grubauer is healthy, maybe they get by Dallas. Maybe they make it to the Cup final. So I think Grubauer is a little bit underrated, to be honest. And I think, for the price that they're getting him at too, it's really, really good.
All right. And that's pretty much all the signing stuff we want to do. We do want to mention and I wanted to dive into a bit because we have Vancouver Canucks. I almost called them Calgary Canucks again. Vancouver Canucks fan here again, specifically around Vancouver's cap situation, which this is probably putting it nicely, is not good.
It's extra not good.
Next summer, they have Elias Pettersson. They have Jack Quinn, Quinn Hughes, and Thatcher Demko, all expiring. Right now, they're over the cap. What do they do next offseason? Because the biggest money they have coming off the books is one of their best defensemen in Alex Edler, Brandon Sutter, which that's good, Tanner Pearson, and Sven Berchi. Oh, and Jordy Ben, because somehow he's getting paid $2 million.
Yep.
And Braden Holtby might go to Seattle.
Yeah. So, the Holtby thing is interesting because signing him to 2 years almost opens an opportunity because look, if you're keeping Demko, he's going to get paid. I would assume this past playoffs, he's not going to be like that all the time, but I assume that he's shown there he can be a starter. Maybe not next year, probably the year after. Regardless, Demko's going to get paid. They've signed Holtby to 2 years. I've kind of thought of this recently. Does letting Demko go solve that cap problem? It would. Is that the route you want to go? I certainly hope not. Regardless, you said it there. Pettersson, Hughes, Demko. Those are the 3 that I care about. I love Alex Edler. He's after Tanev just left, he is the last player remaining from the 2011 run. I don't know how they keep him around unless he takes a massive discount, which for his sake, I hope he doesn't. So he's probably gone. Regardless, Cap Friendly projects him having just under $25 million in space for next year. $25 million, that's going to change, obviously. Things are going to happen. Benning's going to hopefully prepare for next offseason. Even then, $25 million is not enough to sign Hughes, Pettersson, and Demko. It's not. It's getting there, but it's not enough to sign all three of them.
Really? I think it is.
I do not. I think Pettersson, and I mean, excluding any nifty contract work, I think Pettersson 11. I think Hughes close to 9 or 10.
Wow.
And Demko, I don't even want to kind of guess the number because I need to see this year. And again, like, I don't know what term would be, but I'm just saying in general, that's
Right.
what I would say. So yeah, 25 million is close. I don't think it's enough to keep all of them.
The issue with the 25 million is you also have to sign replacements for Brandon Sutter, for Tanner Pearson, for Sven Baertschi, for Alex Edler, and for Jordy Ben.
So I think Edler and Ben, I think the defense can be replaced with players in the system. Benning's already kind of said they're going to go that route this year, even if, like, he thinks he claims they're ready. I don't know. I don't think so, but he says that's what they're gonna go. He's pretty explicitly said the young defense are gonna play. On forwards, like, again, I'd be okay with replacing those guys with people who you're paying very little if it means you are locking down Pettersson, Hughes, Demko long term. Like, it's not the best solution. It's not at all, but it's the position that Jim Benning has put himself in. So, and I've said this on Take to Take, and I've said the way Benning has handled this offseason, I think, has been really, really good. I am very happy with how he's handled this offseason. He backed away from OEL. He let Tanev walk. He let Markstrom walk. They signed for a lot more money than I would have wanted Benning to sign them for. I'm okay with that. That is not to say Benning's a good GM, because Benning was put in that position to have to let those guys walk because of signings he made. So yes, he had a good offseason. He's had a good offseason so far, and he's made a lot of decisions or non-decisions, but he has put himself in the position that they're in now. So I'm kind of torn on him because he seems to kind of be smartening up, but I also think he doesn't have a choice. Like, I like to think, wow, good on him for letting Tanev and Markstrom walk. But I also think, what else was he going to do? He didn't have a choice, and it's his fault he doesn't have a choice. So I don't know.
I wonder if the solution comes from Seattle and putting Michael Furland on LTIR.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Furland is like, that's such a sucky situation to see. It just from all perspectives, like him as a player, him personally, the team, like, that just sucks. Seattle, like, yeah, you bring up a good point with Seattle. I think the one stroke of luck in all this is that this is happening at the same time Seattle's entering the league. So I don't know. I would hope something happens with the goalies there. The Holtby signing, just in itself, I was pretty happy with. He had one bad year, but a 2-year term is fine, and the money is fine. And again, like Demko, I think he's proven he can be that goalie that he was, or close to that he was in these playoffs. I don't know if he's there yet. I'm very glad that Benning brought Holtby in, because choosing to ride Demko after a 3-game, very strong 3 games, but after a 3-game stretch, I'm happy that he chose that route. I didn't expect Holtby specifically, but I mean, it is what it is. So I'm pretty happy with that. But I mean, just in general, they're in a terrible spot. Benning has mostly put them in that spot, and I don't know if he can get them out of it. Obviously his priorities are going to be keeping Pettersson and Hughes, and to a lesser extent, but still a pretty high extent, Demko. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting whenever that offseason is.
The good things are Quinn Hughes isn't eligible for an offer sheet.
Yeah. So.
And Thatcher Demko has RFA rights or arbitration rights. So you could theoretically walk away from the number that they decide in arbitration.
Yeah.
I wonder if you swing a deal with Seattle with one of your good young prospects, like an Ole Juolevi or a Jet Wu, to take on the contract of Louis Eriksson.
If theoretically you lose Jet Wu or Juolevi to Seattle or whatever, for them to take on Eriksson, absolutely. I don't know if they would, because to be honest, Eriksson's I'm looking at the cap friendly now. When's he up? 22?
2022, 2023. He's a UFA.
Okay, so that's
how much is he
farther
making?
than I thought. 6
6
million.
Wow.
Oh man,
it's only one more year.
I feel
Well,
like
maybe
that was
it's
signed
only a
forever
first round
ago,
pick.
So that, like, yeah, if they could do that, absolutely, I'd be okay with that.
You think they'll trade Besser?
I think if they were going to trade Besser, it would have happened already.
You're so mean, Aiden.
I think it was Toffoli or Besser, and they kept Besser. Thank goodness.
Very, very true. We're down to 10 minutes on the call, and we have to get through a pretty crappy situation in the Mitchell Miller stuff. Basically, I don't really know how much we need to comment on this, but Mitchell Miller bullied. They say it's bullying. It's more than that. He bullied a Black developmentally challenged classmate named Isaiah. I won't say his last name just for his privacy, but it is available online if you want to find it. He basically bullied him for years, which culminated in he and Miller and another classmate facing criminal charges because of one of the acts that they did, which was absolutely horrific and disgusting and just unexplainable how they thought on any planet that was okay. He was convicted for it, and it was caught on security footage, but the security footage has stayed private because of the request of the family. But they admitted guilt because of this. He was sentenced to 25 hours of community service and to write an apology to Isaiah and his family. But since then, according to his mother, he has never personally apologized. The other person involved, the mother says he broke down in tears as he was reading the apology, and it doesn't show that Mitchell Miller has any sort of respect, first of all, B, any sort of acceptance or realization, I guess, that this was incredibly messed up. And I would like to use different language, but we try not to swear a ton on this podcast. He was the Coyotes' first pick in this draft, 4th round. He's got I believe, a scholarship to UMC, I believe. I might have the school wrong. But the bottom line is the team knew about this. And everybody knew about this. And a lot of teams passed on him because of this. But Arizona didn't. So I hope he never makes it to the NHL because he hasn't shown that he's changed. He hasn't shown that he's remorseful. He hasn't shown anything. And I don't think he deserves to be successful when he is willing to do that and when he has done things like this in his past, personally. I don't know if either of you want to add anything before I mention the quick Terence Davis update, and then we do our hot takes as quickly as possible. But do either of you have any sort of thoughts on Mitchell Miller?
I think it's just a messed up situation. And yeah, I agree with Connor. I mean, I'm not really one to just completely rule out a person. Like, I always think someone can change, but I don't know. It's tough to see the light, I guess, right now. And yeah, it's interesting as to why even the Coyotes drafted him when they knew what was up. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
There's questions everywhere about this. There's just so much wrong with the situation. And it's terrible to see, like, that it happened in the first place, of course, and then that it's kind of continued up until this point. And yeah, like you said, Connor, this isn't necessarily news right now. Like, this has been known, and still drafted, and it's horrible to see. So
It's disappointing is a very light way of putting it, I'd say. Similarly, very disappointing what is now coming out about Terence Davis. And he's facing, according to Rick Westhead and the legal documents, 7 charges, including 2 counts of assault, harassment, endangering the welfare of a child, and criminal mischief. So this doesn't look very good for him. And his court date is set for December 11th, or his next court date. But we'll wrap up on something a little bit more positive, which we're always wrong about. Our hot takes. We'll do this really quickly before we jump out of here so we don't have to make another Zoom call. Do either of you have one prepared?
Yes. I'll go football related. Gotta show the Detroit Lions a little bit of love here. I don't know if this is really a hot take. I think it's like there's a good chance this happens. I think the Lions finish 8-8 on the year. They're 3-3 right now. They started the season 1-3. I think a lot of people had them going like 4-12. I think they're going to finish 8-8. They're just going to miss out on the playoffs. But here's the hot take. They decide to keep Matt Patricia. They don't fire their head coach. They keep Matt Patricia. After all of this, after everything that's been going on this year and all the talk about him being fired, they're going to keep him for another year.
Haven't you predicted that he'll both be fired and he will stay now?
Yeah, I think a couple of weeks ago my hot take was he's fired before the trade deadline, but that's not working out. They've won their last 2 games, and the trade deadline is sneaking up, and I don't think they're going to fire him before the deadline now.
All right, Luke, what is your hot take?
This upcoming NHL season, whenever that is, the Ottawa Senators make the playoffs. The Calgary Flames do not.
What? I can feel the heat from
I don't
here.
even think it's hot. I don't think it's that hot.
I think I could see
that's
Calgary
a hot
miss.
Take.
I could see It depends on the divisions too, right? But I think Calgary could miss the playoffs.
Point, yeah.
But I don't think Ottawa's going to make the playoffs. That's the hot take. I agree with the Calgary thing, but not the Ottawa thing.
Watch.
Ottawa's a bottom 5 team in the NHL, personally. But my hot take, I think, what's his name again? I've forgotten who he is. That's how irrelevant he is. Justin Turner. I think the MLB completely misses on the punishment, and it becomes an even bigger issue, the punishment, than what he did. Although that's probably not a hot take because that always happens in baseball. But with that, balanced out hot takes from Luke and me, we thank you for listening. We will see you next week. Hopefully we're live on Spirit Live.
Yeah.
you want to watch the show, go there. We're live every Wednesday from 3 to 4. Luke, thank you for joining us. We
Thank you, Luke.
truly appreciate you taking the past 4 hours of your
Is it
day,
really?
3 hours
3 hours.
of your day to record with us and tell your story, I guess. It's been a ton of fun. You're an excellent storyteller, and that might be the hottest take we will ever have. But yeah, we will link all of Luke's stuff down below in the description of the YouTube video. So go check out all of his stuff. But yeah, we'll be back next week. Thank you for watching. Follow me on Twitter at CWG Somerville. Follow Aiden at
Aiden Silliphant.
Are you using Twitter yet?
No, Instagram. Sorry, Instagram.
Instagram. All right. He said he would start using his Twitter again last week.
I might.
Didn't.
Yeah.
But yes, thank you for listening. We'll stop rambling and we'll take off. We'll see you next week. Peace.